Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good noon, wherever you are, wherever you are. We would like to welcome you all to Crazy Talks with Wise People. This is really a crazy talk with another crazy person with wise ideas. Our guest for today, we are so honored. He's so busy. He does a lot of things. He's multi-talented, but most of all, he's got an astute critical and analytical thinking ability. Stuart Delony is the host of the provocative podcast, Snarky Faith. With a sharp wit and incisive critique, Stuart skewers the absurdities of Christianity, highlighting its shift from the teachings of Jesus to a pursuit of power. A former pastor with a seminary background, Stuart brings a unique insider perspective, having seen firsthand how organized religion strays from its ethical roots. Let's all welcome
Thank
Stuart
you. Thank you for
Delony.
having me here today.
Hmm,
Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you too. It looks like we are going to have a good time today.
Oh, I think we will.
So tell us first, what is Snarky Faith all about? It's your podcast, isn't it? All
It
right.
is. Yes,
Tell
Snarky
us about
Snarky Faith is a podcast, much like what you said. We talk through issues. A lot of ours centers around the craziness in American Christianity, but we also talk about Christianity in a broad sense. And it's really just kind of, yeah, I think much of what you said before, we skewer what's out there and really try to draw back to what are the actual roots of Christianity, because a lot of what happens today has nothing to do with the words and teachings of Jesus.
Absolutely. I agree. Will you be another Martin Luther?
No, hardly not. Hardly not. I'm just a guy with a microphone and an opinion, and someone who's a little too snarky and sarcastic from time to time.
Well, sarcasm is actually a sign of wit. Or
Hopefully so.
well, how well I've watched some of your podcasts. Rather, I'd listened to some of your podcasts, and it reminds me of NPR radio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a format, right? That's a format.
Mm-hmm.
It's I should say the reason why I made a comment that you are good at critical and analytical thinking is
Mm-hmm.
because you are coming from, I think, the X gen or maybe millennial. And I like,
Older, yeah. I'm more Gen X.
oh, you're Gen X, okay. But
I'd
there
be
are
older
a lot
Gen
of
X,
Gen
yeah.
X. Yeah, there are a lot of Gen X who can understand and who in fact still live the
Mm-hmm.
the millennial generation. Now, okay, so I was able to listen to some of your podcasts, and your point of view are really so exact, and I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first of all, I've noticed the language that you use. The language is not the thee, thou, thy, and your language is very relatable and understandable by people from all walks of life. So
Mm-hmm.
why did you okay, so why did you adopt that kind of language in your uh vlog or podcast?
Yeah, yeah. So why do I talk the way I do in my podcast? Some of it is that a lot of my audience are folks that are disaffected and feel like disenfranchised from the faith. Folks that may have said like I really like the teachings of Jesus, but the stuff that's going in the church, that's really not for me. It's too political. There's too much other BS that goes on in there. And so I just came at this from a standpoint of just learning to be honest, and just really being honest from where I come from. And yes, on the podcast, my language can get very salty at times as well. But a lot of it comes at that standpoint of, for me, a lot of it's frustration and pushing back against the grifters and pastors and so called prophets that are really there just to get profits from other people. And so a lot of that is my frustration for how they're kind of just really just doing a number over on the faith. And I found too that it helps with folks that feel disaffected and that feel like, oh my gosh, yes, I felt this way before too. I have heard, yeah. And so I think it's intentional in being able to connect with folks out there. For the most part, my podcast isn't necessarily centered around the normal churchgoer. It's centered around folks that are kind of on the fringes or outside of that, and so I speak accordingly.
Correct. Okay. So and I agree with you. Already have mentioned some. Well, this is not actually to, well, this podcast, neither my guest or I are anti-church. We love Jesus. We love the church, but we are doing this because we love Jesus and we want to put things straight. We want to put things right. Just to make a point that we are churchgoers. So we who are seated at the pews would know that something is wrong. And that's why we are coming out to the open, not because we want to antagonize you, but we want to put a check and balance in what you're doing in the pulpit ministry. We love you. All right. So stay put. Okay. So what are these BS that you can see? Well, you were a pastor. Why did you resign as a pastor in the first place?
For me, a lot of it was a journey. For the longest time, it was me trying to find a place where I felt like I fit in different, because I've worked for many different denominations. And I kept trying to find a tribe that made more sense, that didn't have the same problems that I'd seen before. And I continue to see this across the spectrum. Problems with in the church with the patriarchy, problems with abusive power. Yes, and being able to take scripture out of context to really just be able to either tell people what they want to hear, yes, or to be able to get more money into those pastors' pockets. And for me, I had gotten sick of all of it, and I tried to work in different systems, but I kept seeing a lot of them had the same flaws. And in the different organizations I've worked for, me voicing those flaws tended to make me the one that was the annoying one on staff, or the one that was like, but that's okay. We need to do that. So I kept getting the pushback. And after a while, you begin to realize you're not the one trying to course correct the ship. You're just the one that is just a pain in their own butts. And perhaps I needed to find a different, greener pastures to move on to.
Find your own tribe. Yes. It's true. Prophesying for prophets. I agree. Pulpit for profit. I agree. Pulpit for there's a term for that. A pulpit for you said patriarchy, but there's a term for that, which is being what do you call this? Being bossy.
Yes.
Being commanding with no humility.
Toxic leadership, yes.
Arrogant. And what does patriarchy mean in terms of leadership? Being tyrannical and all these things, which are not a part of God's teaching. You're right there. And I agree with you. Let's go on.
Okay.
Let's go on, Snarky Faith. So, okay, so you went out of your way. You went out of the church because you found some stench. And when you wanted to cleanse the stench, you are being cleansed. You were purged, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It after it happens a few times, you begin to recognize that sometimes you may just need to move to a different place. You may need to show yourself the door.
Right. Yes. Well, I think what I've learned is that not everybody is anointed to be in our lives. So we just need to choose the people that we surround ourselves with. I think you're a right brain person, like most of us, or maybe most of our viewers. A right brain person has very strong discernment, and they cannot
Mm.
accept bullshit. Sorry for the word. They cannot accept BS. So since they cannot accept bullshit, sorry for my word, but that's the exact word.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. So, for example, we have seen a lot,
Mhm.
like pastors branding themselves instead of promoting Jesus in their church. That is so rampant. That's demonic and
Mhm.
satanic. And you cannot stand that, right? You puke when you hear this. And you puke when you hear this, you know? Um, so you cannot stand them anymore. You went out. So,
Mhm.
what happened to your life next after you went out of this BS?
Well, I think one thing is important to also mention. I think that you talked about discernment,
Mm,
and I think that discernment also comes over time.
mm,
Um, and it's something that's earned over time. And I think this has been something with me seeing stuff in the church even since I was little,
mm,
growing up and feeling like something just wasn't right or something was off.
mm.
Because uh, my parents were both raised me Christian, and they were together, but my dad was more conservative, and my mom was more on the prophetic realm end of it for a bit.
Okay.
So they kind of did that and then came back together. And so bouncing around and going to the different experiences, you can begin to see the differences in both of those places.
Mm,
And really, like what you'd asked, what did I do afterwards? I had had enough and I left, and I decided to what we'd done in our community for a while. This is all pre-COVID. We would just host. My wife and I would host just spiritual conversations in pubs and bars in the area,
wow.
and we would have people that would come in and have conversations from all sorts of things like that. It kind of evolved into what we're doing on the radio now,
Mm,
being able to have conversations with folks that agree with us, that may disagree with us, but people that are really seeking out there
right,
and wanting to know more.
right.
And I've been able to find community through doing this online. I've been able to find community through others. I mean, I have a group of either current pastors or ex-pastors that I facilitate a conversation group that we hang out with every other week.
I'll join
And
that group. I'd like to join. You should also join my transformational leadership training.
mm,
I also touch on that. Okay. Birds of the same feather. All right.
mhm,
So what did you find out? Of course, we're not saying this to diminish anyone's or to
mm,
discredit anyone, but just for the sake of talking,
mhm,
because I agree with you. What your experiences are were the same experiences that I have had, and so we agree on this. And most of these people who are listening to us right now might agree with us. And sorry, pastors. Yes, we're talking about you, and
mhm,
please listen to us. We're not attacking you. We're just giving you some suggestions, just
mhm,
dropping some suggestions to you, just in case, you know,
mhm,
just in case. So, okay. So you went out because
mhm,
you were discontented. And it's good you did something. It
mhm,
wasn't destructive. You just went out, withdrew, and did something
mhm,
good, right? Because
mhm.
folks, it's there are a lot of problems in this world. True. But we have our own right not to cry, not to be desperate, not to be depressed, but to leap and give solutions to our perceived problems. So that's just exactly what Stuart did. So you are trying to offer a solution to
Yeah.
the problem that to one of the problems that our church is facing right now.
Mhm,
Our church is facing a big backlash. It's becoming unpopular. It has no more mandate. When someone tells you I'm a pastor, I'm not gonna trust anymore. The first thing that I might say is, pastor of what? What congregation? What's your track record? I am now going to interrogate because pastors, titular leaders, they don't work. They don't work. So now you don't have a title.
mhm,
You went out.
mhm.
But are you still effective?
I think so. I mean, it depends on what you're asking. What is effective and what you're looking for. I feel like
Yeah, I mean, you are still
I
being able to get followers. Are you
Mhm.
able to convert them to Christianity? Are they still being fed spiritually?
Mhm.
Are these people are becoming better now that you have your own?
Well, the way I've looked at this as it's not necessarily that I took, it's, a lot of times it'll be like, well, I'll leave this ministry and I'm going to just go do this ministry because
Mm,
now my ministry is right and these are all wrong.
mm,
I've taken a different approach to how I'm doing it. It's more of like an open hand.
mm,
And a lot of what I've done on the show, it's me processing my own faith as
mm,
I'm walking outside of things. It's issues that I'm wrestling through now because by no means do I have it all figured out.
mm,
I'm not fully formed. I don't know if I'll ever be fully formed while I'm here on the earth. I feel like I'm constantly learning and growing. I'm healing.
mm,
I'm finding parts of myself that need old trauma that
mm.
needs to be healed and worked through.
Yeah,
Some of it was from the church, some of it's from childhood and life.
correct.
Um,
Mm,
but I think it's just being what I've learned is being kind to myself and allowing and challenging others to be able to give themselves space, to be able to lean, to learn, to grow, to be able to see where is God active
mm,
in our lives today. Because so often we just assume it's, well, God's active at church or God's active wherever my pastor or whatever is telling me to go do, or in this mission field is God's active, and that's
mm,
simply not true. If God is the God of the universe, God's everywhere. Um, and God is around us. God is in us, and I think even being able to get to a place where you're able to kind of step out of that manic flow
mm,
of culture and
mm,
to-do lists and pressures and responsibilities, to really be able to slow down and breathe and be contemplative and be able to see what's happening around us. Because too often I think we just move from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and we do it without uh, really just paying that much attention to our own selves, to our own breath, to what is going on within ourselves. And so, yeah, so by no means am I saying that I've left the church and have ministry or anything else figured out. I am just continuing like I've always been, someone that continues to seek after God, continues to learn and grow, continues to figure out where I've messed up, continues to realize places I need to do better. But I think that's part of the human experience, and that's
right.
part of the faith experience, anyways,
Mhm.
too.
Thank you for your transparency. You don't come up to the open and say, I'm the Alpha and the Omega. You have to follow me. I know everything. You don't have that kind of, and that way I respect you more
Mm-hmm.
because of your transparency. And transparency is a sign of integrity. Okay. Now, um, also deducing from what you said, you are still learning. Well, everybody else is learning. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it when teachers go to stage and they say, I know everything. No, no one has a monopoly of knowledge. We are all learners, we are all seekers. We we are not yet done.
Mm-hmm.
So we should always appear to be learners,
Mm-hmm.
not, yeah, we, because everyone is a learner. And I think that's one of those ideals that we need to see in our pastors and our church leaders and everybody, even from our parents. They should not come to us and lecture on us as if they know everything,
Mm-hmm.
because no one has a monopoly of knowledge. They must also listen.
Sure.
They must listen. Pastors, listen to your bench warmers. These bench warmers, you just don't know. There's something going on in their minds. There's something going on in their minds. Listen to them. Just
Mm-hmm.
don't stand on the pulpit and deliver your speeches. No, you will not be effective that way, and you will not change lives that way. I also agree with you when you said that you're still trying to figure out, you're trying to improve on your intrapersonal relationship by healing old wounds. I like that, because everybody on earth really carries a baggage.
Mhm.
And so, pastors, you should also need to you should also need to create, small leaders, small team leaders in your churches, especially if you're leading a mega church. Listen to Stuart Delony. He is not just one voice. There are many voices who are not maybe as creative and who are not as cocky as us, who come out to the open, but there are a lot, millions
Mhm.
of people who are needy. They just go to your churches just to be, just to feel that high, emotional high, because you're bombarding them with all this financial stability. What do you call that? The financial gospel? What do you call that? What do
Talking
you call?
about what they're the finances they're trying to bring in, the grifting or the
Oh, no, there's what you
no.
call prosperity gospel.
Oh, prosperity gospel. Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah, those are
So
fun. Those guys are fun.
people go, they regard your church as an opium, a place
Mhm.
where to get high, but that's not what spirituality is. That's why Snarky here, Snarky Faith, came out. Okay. Well, I'm doing my own teachings and my transformational leadership seminars.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Sometimes if we hurt you, but this is how we feel. And
Mhm.
this is how not only us, but many of us
Mhm.
feel. And I hope you pastors listen to us. Okay. So,
I want to say one thing because you mentioned about when you mentioned about healing and stuff in churches, and especially a lot of churches. One area I've seen that does a tremendous amount of damage in a lot of places too
mm,
are pastors that believe that they are also counselors for people that have issues. A lot of times in seminary, when you go through, you may have one, you may have two classes on how to counsel people, but that does not make you a licensed
that's not
counselor.
correct.
You are not a professional, and you are
Right.
not. And I think part of wisdom in a lot of scenarios, which gets a lot of pastors into trouble giving bad advice to people, is realize where your limits are. You're not an expert, and that's okay. You
Yeah,
know,
that's okay.
but
Correct.
but realize that find good people to refer folks to, because
That's it. Yeah.
Mhm. Because sometimes, I mean, sometimes people need medical help through stuff that they're going through.
Mm,
Sometimes people need more than just a little, well, uh, God's got a plan for this. And you
mm,
just keep praying. Because sometimes those kind of answers can actually be one of the most evil answers you can give people,
sure.
because it's empty and nonsense and you're giving people false hope.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. Yes. They're different folks, different strokes. And that's why, yes, there are actually professional courses on seminaries on professional counseling for
Mm-hmm,
Christians. But if
mm-hmm,
you just took 1 or 2 units, you're right. It
mm-hmm,
doesn't make you a professional Christian. And the most dangerous thing is, you know, little knowledge is very dangerous. Have you noticed it? People
mm-hmm.
who are learned are the most unassuming. The learned people, they're the most unassuming. People who know little are the most assuming. They assume they know everything. Yeah.
Mm.
So be careful. Okay. All right. So, Ama, you may or you may not answer this one.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced you being counseled by a pastor and the following day, everyone else, all the elders already know about your predicament?
I have not had that, but I know I do. I have a good friend that at the time he's a pastor now, but when he was a youth pastor at it was a decent sized church on the West Coast,
Mm,
and they had I remember this, their church had a men's weekend
mm,
where people were like sharing, that it was supposed to be very together, and all the men in the church are supposed to kind of just be sharing like some of their stuff they struggle with and everything else like that.
mm,
Well, my friend that was a youth pastor had struggled that he had shared that he had struggled with pornography online. And so it said, that's something I'm struggling with. I need help with this. Can you guys be praying with me? And la di da, good weekend, bro pats, everyone's feeling good about themselves. Well, people go back and start talking around the church about this and start wanting to get him fired for this. And so it's an interesting thing to where you see somebody confiding in people, trying to say, I'm struggling with this, I need help with this. And then it turns to be, well, that wasn't a safe space. That wasn't a safe place at all. And that does happen a lot in places like that, to where there's either gossip in the church. Oh,
Gossip,
good.
right?
Oh goodness, that's
Gossip.
prayer chains. I've seen so many churches prayer chains have
Prayer
like the,
chains are a way of gossip, right?
well,
Yeah,
it's subtle gossip.
it is
It
gossip.
is. They don't
Yeah,
say it right out there,
gossip
but
prayer.
oh yeah. And so things like that, or we act like we're doing good, but really we're just kind of being nasty.
Correct. Or sometimes, open prayer, not
Mhm.
just open prayer, are actually sometimes way to attack other people. Like,
Mhm.
Father God, I'm praying for this brother who is in front of me right now. Correct him for his.
It is. It's interesting how cagey things, simple things like that, that should just be pure of the heart and what we're seeking for and asking for, but
Yeah.
they end up getting nasty.
Yes. And yeah, you know what? That's why I don't open up anymore to churches, because
Mhm.
it happened to me one time. I was opening up to a sister and I told her, this is just between us. Because and then and then I sensed that the pastor, I mean, if I would like the pastor to know about my predicament, I could have
Mhm.
went to the pastor. But I didn't. I just went to her and I told her. But you see, I was thinking, oh well, because this person is not a professional counselor. So
Mhm.
next time I'm gonna go to a professional counselor, because professional counselors know their professional ethics and they
Mhm.
respect secrecy.
Mhm.
They respect a secrecy. So guys, we are telling you this because some of the pastors are going out of bound. And even some sisters in church or brothers in church, they're going out of bound. So before you even entrust your life, your secrets to a brother or sister supposed to be in church, or a pastor and elder, make sure that they are reasonably ethical. Well, they can actually divulge in Christian counseling. People can divulge to authorities, only to the authorities, if you're in danger.
Mhm.
For example, you're a drug addict, then they really have, like, drug addiction or alcoholism, they really have the right to counsel you, and with your permission, bring you to the authorities. That's one of ethics in one of the Bible schools where I'm studying right now. Because I'm studying Christian counseling, because that's really what I need, and because that's not what I don't want in churches. That's why I am trying to study and learn, not because
Mhm.
I know everything, but that's just so far. So far, that's what I've learned. So that's the only time that people
Mhm.
can actually, but not to everybody in church, not to everybody, because that's gossiping and that is backstabbing in a way.
Mhm.
Okay, so another thing. Now, okay, with all this that we see, creating more problems in church and stirring the hornet's nest might not help. So instead of banging on the problem, we are here. We created our own niche to help heal the wounds of the church. So in your case, aside from Snarky Faith,
Mhm.
Stuart, what other things are you contributing to the Christian community in order for you to solve the problem? Because we've seen these problems, and it's not by coincidence that we are seeing these problems.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's up, and you're not stupid, and I'm and so am I. We're not stupid. We're seeing these problems, I think, because we've given this divine smartness in
Mhm.
us, and we've got this courage to speak up. So what else are you doing? uh, what else are you doing? What else is your contribution to Christianity, to our community as a Christian, for
I
us to
think
be
just
able to
beyond
solve?
beyond my voice, my contribution right now is just between this and between writing.
Oh, you
To
also write. Good.
I
You
yeah,
have a blog.
I have a column on Patheos dot
Mm,
com.
good.
So do that. It's again, it's much like a lot of the other stuff that I do. It's pushing back and it's just questioning things. But I question things because I care
Yeah.
about the teachings of Christ, which
Mm.
is different than just like throwing rocks at it from
Right.
just
Right.
completely
You're
from the
offering a
outside.
solution.
I'm trying to,
Yes.
and
You're not just dishing out frustrations, but you're
I
dishing.
do that too, but I do that at times too
Yeah, it's
sometimes
balance.
in my
Balance.
work.
Balance is the key to
But
life.
trying
Yeah.
to
Right.
yeah, but trying to keep some of that in there as well too, and just also learning to laugh through the process. Some of the stuff we do is that I write or that we do on the show is meant to be humorous as well too, because some of the ridiculousness that people are dealing with and some of the ridiculousness of what's happening,
Right.
sometimes all you can do is just be like, this is just effing nuts and crazy, and we can laugh about this because it is
Oh
just
wow.
that absurd.
Right.
Um,
Give us the link to your what yeah, to your writing or journalistic writing, because we will be writing that down below. So guys, if you feel like you want something fresh out of the pulpit, but still within the context of Christianity and even more, please read his blog down below, and Patios. Okay. Yes, please read and please follow Snarky Faith vlog. All right. I will be writing that down below, so you'd be able to follow him and listen. And I perceive you to be a very open-minded person. What if someone comes to you and tells you that you're wrong?
I'm okay with it. I'll ask him why. I want to hear what they have to say. I've done I've done plenty of events that when we first started doing events in our area, we'd do stuff in our house or in bars in the area, and we would attract atheists. And what began to happen is they just got really frustrated with me because they would come and try to mess with it or to mess with me, being like, "Ooh, well, what about this? What about this?" And I was okay with being, "You may have a point here," or "I'm not really sure." I mean, I think being able to kind of come to that place of just honesty and transparency of where I'm standing at, and not trying to grandstand with them. I made friends with some. I frustrated others because they were hoping that this is going to be something that they could easily lob issues with at. And I was open. I'm open to listening to people and to hearing what they have to say. Uh, but again, discernment is also into how much time you spend doing
You're
that
right. You're right.
with certain people too, because
Yeah.
especially in the online space, there are many a troll out there that you could spend all day long going back and forth with, and that's probably not the best use of your time.
Personal management. That's what you
Mm-hmm,
call, that's what you call personal management. You
mm-hmm,
would know when to say hello and when to say goodbye. That's
mm-hmm,
personal management. And you must be able to discern as well, you're right, as to who you would allow to penetrate into your life and who not to, and who are anointed to be in your life and who not to. That's very wise. Now you said you go around and ask questions. So asking
mm-hmm,
questions is very
mm-hmm.
wise. Where did you learn this? Asking questions and listening.
I don't know where exactly I learned this. I probably like my parents used to hate this about me because I just wanted to understand why things made sense. Like I wanted to understand why. Not strictly from a standpoint of trying to prove people wrong, but if something doesn't make sense and it doesn't fit in my head, well, I just naturally want to know why. And I don't necessarily just take it. Well, it's because it's always been this way.
Mm,
That answer has never satisfied me at all.
mm,
Um, and oftentimes that answer is kind of code for please shut up. um,
mm.
we don't want to be challenged right now. So I do it within my own life. I within whether it's faith or otherwise, I don't think I'm infallible. I don't think I know it all, and I think I still have things to learn. I learn from my teenage kids all the time,
True, it's true, yeah.
and I've also learned as a parent that I am wrong, um,
Mm.
and have learned to be able to ask for apologies for my children. Like, oh, I was out of line. I was wrong there, and walking through that, but I think it just goes back to being really open-handed in how we hold things. Because I think if we come at things with a closed fist, that's all we're going to get is what we have. But if we come to stuff with an open hand, we're able to see other people's perspectives, even if we don't agree with them. It's still valuable to understand where other people are coming from. because I've lived a life, but my perspective in life is very limited to the places I've grown up in, the communities I've been around, the education I've received, and etc. I realize I'm limited. I don't know it all, and so I think that I've had that approach to myself. So I kind of turn that approach to everything else as well too. So that it's kind of a curiosity that can lead to questioning, that can lead to annoyance of people in power when you ask those questions. And there's times that respectfully ask questions, and there's also times to be snarky. And
You're right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I have learned a lot from you, and I'm so happy to meet such a like-minded individual. All right. Now I would like I would like you all. Well, for those of you who live in this area, are you reachable? Are
oh
you
yes, you,
reachable?
you can find me anywhere. You can if you look up, I'm pretty much the only Stuart Delony in existence that I'm aware about.
Mm.
And or at least online presence wise, yeah, you can find me websites all over. Just look up Stuart Delony, and I'm always open to talk to people when they reach out to me.
All right, I'll reach out to you soon.
Mhm.
Okay, please reach out to him as well. Okay, so please follow Snarky Faith, Snarky Faith, and another his blog as well. I'm going to post everything down below. Now, to summarize your point, do you have some messages for our audience before we go?
I would say as you're walking out and as you are continuing to evolve and grow in your faith journey, um, be okay with being wrong, be okay with taking risks, be okay with detours and U-turns, and be okay with it. Because one of the things I think that messed me up the most when I was younger in my faith was this idea that there's a perfect path, and I had every step had to be perfect. Um, and so I think have patience with yourself, have patience with those around you, and have patience with God as you're walking through the process as well too. But
Right.
I think that posture we mentioned earlier, of just trying to move towards being a lifelong learner.
That's great. Thank you so much. For all of you, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to be courageous, to speak up, whatever it is that you feel you need to speak up. Don't be afraid to be yourself. I think that's what we learned from Snarky Faith today. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Face yourself. Develop your intrapersonal relationship. Because once you develop your intrapersonal relationship, then your interpersonal relationship comes in and it's even stronger. Now, don't be afraid to be, cocky a bit. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. In other words, fear not. Don't be afraid to venture into the unknown. Don't be afraid to offer solutions to whatever problems you see in this world because you count. There's power of one. Jesus Christ only had one life, but he saved many. And if you're a Christian and you believe in Jesus, then live the life as a savior. Don't be afraid to go out and speak your truth. Thank you so much, Snarky Faith. Thank you so much, Stuart Delony. Please say goodbye to our viewers.
Well, thank you for having me, and yeah, I wish you all the best as you continue to grow and learn more about yourself and
Mm,
uh, all that you can in this experience that we call life.
mm. Thank you so much, and maybe we can have you back again next week or next month.
Mhm.
Just your I know you're busy, so I really would like to have you back. It's just so
Sure.
refreshing to be with a like-minded person with, I think, almost the same personality. All right. So thank you, my dear friends, for being with us today. Crazy Talks with Wise People. This is Mary Angela Moore Talk from my studio in Scotland. Bye for now and see you next meeting. And I hope that you have learned a lot from our precious guest for today. Don't forget to follow Snarky Faith. Just Google, you'll find it there. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Stuart. Bye for now.
Bye.